Thanks, Zoom. Well, welcome everyone. I feel like I saw most of you in the previous session we had this morning at our Regional Food Systems Partnership Coffee Talk, which was really fantastic. We already talked about some of the resources we're going to discuss today, so that was a nice little primer. For a couple of you who are new to the discussion, my name is Rachel Miller and I chair the Alaska Food Policy Council and wear a variety of other hats in our food system here in Alaska. So today, thanks for coming today. Today, we're going to talk about digital tools for food project management. And these obviously are tools you could use for projects other than food, but that's what we're talking about today. And I know most of you from food projects. So that's how we're going to focus our discussion. We only have an hour today. So I will just preface this discussion by saying, I'm going to give you a brief intro of what I do. We're going to get into using 3 very specific tools that I've seen many groups in many parts of the world use. And hopefully this will be a good platform for folks to feel a little more empowered about running their own food projects. And all the tools we're going to discuss today are free, which is fabulous. So I will be monitoring the chat. We'll do questions throughout. So if you want to come on mic and say, hey, I have a question about this, you really want to capture the moment, please feel free to do so. I'd like us to pretend that we're all in a room together and we're just having kind of a workshop. I think it'll go easier that way. So first of all, I chair the Alaska Food Policy Council, but my other hat is I'm an associate professor of business at Alaska Pacific University. And in that capacity, myself and my colleague, Liz Snyder, who's a public health professor, adjunct at UAA, we 3 years ago started FRESH, the Food Research Enterprise and Sustainability Hub. And FRESH is this hub of a place to learn more about food systems and host food security and sovereignty dialogue in the North. So we're specifically excited about the Circumpolar North. And so that's what we do. We have categorized our work into a couple different ways. We have a foodpreneurship track where we talk about small business, food startups, a little more of the for-profit industry-based side. Grow You is where we talk about curriculum everywhere from pre-K to post-college graduate, everything in between, and community-based food education as well. To be clear, this is not what cooperative extension does. We're a little bit more within the university and school system. And then the food lab, which is our catch-all for any sort of food project. And what my favorite thing we've been working on lately is our bi-weekly radio show called The Polar Potluck. And so if you have an idea for a radio show, we on freshnorth.org, you can check out our recordings and I would love to talk to you because I know most of you are working on really neat food projects. So that's what I do with FRESH, and that's the capacity, that's the hat that I'm wearing today. So what do we do? I've worked with a variety of different project partners across the state and the North. And the big thing we're going to talk about today is about how to make better connections and to create lasting conversation and multi-way dialogue. And so that's the big thing I want to talk about today. We offer a variety of services, but making connections is really what we do is all about. We know that, to create a more resilient food system in Alaska, it's never just with one agency, one NGO, one nonprofit, or one person. It takes really a community overall to create a more robust food system. So that's why we're excited about this discussion today. So more specifically, what are we doing? I am sure over the last year, many of you were introduced to new technologies, new communication platforms. For some folks, that's been really, really uncomfortable. And I just want to, I think it's okay to make space for folks who are still not yet up to speed. I was on a meeting yesterday and someone said, I have yet to schedule a Zoom call. I don't know how to do this. And I find that when I'm in meetings and someone throws in a shared Google document into the chat, inevitably there's one person who is really overwhelmed because it's a new tool for them, and learning on the fly is not everyone's best way of learning. So today was just, let's get into the weeds, let's get into the details, and we're going to launch some of these tools, and we're all going to use them together today. So I'm a big fan of hands-on learning, and if we need to have follow-up discussion and sessions, we certainly can. So today's the introduction to a couple digital tools. So I'd like to hear from everyone here. If you could chat or turn on your mic, how do you use technology currently to manage projects? Anyone have a favorite tool that they couldn't live without? Okay, Robbie says Google Drive in the chat. Erica says emails and flyers. Absolutely. I think in Alaska, especially, flyers and community bulletin boards are still definitely a form of communication. What about social media? Word of mouth? Yep, absolutely. Word of mouth, emails and flyers, Google Drive. Erica says in the works with, is that IG? Do you mean Instagram? Cool. Instagram's a great tool, especially with the messaging function. You can talk directly to stakeholders. All right, and just for my own knowledge, Robbie, could you launch the poll to ask if folks, I want to find out if everyone here is a node leader from our Regional Food Systems Partnership Grant, or if you just came from our Facebook event. So Robbie, if you could launch that poll.
It's launched.
All right, everyone should see it.
Good. 8 out of 11. So you 3 that haven't voted yet, 1 more minute.
Cool. We good?
Yeah, we got 1 more person, 10 seconds. If you want to vote, now's the time. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end polling, and I will share the results. And we have 3 of us are node leaders, 6 of us are not, and 1 person is unsure.
Okay, great. That's great. We were just asking, if you're not familiar, Alaska Food Policy Council received a Regional Food Systems Partnership Grant from the USDA, where we have 13 nodes across the state. And we've invited all of our node leaders. And this discussion, the impetus for this slideshow and chat today was from some of our group meetings where people were just a little uncomfortable with technology. So that's also the reason that we're recording today. Oh, great. We've got a couple more contributions to the chat. Great. Yeah, thanks, Robbie, for sharing. Okay, so these are the 3 platforms we're going to talk about today. I picked these 3 because I use them most frequently. Organizations I work with use them most frequently. They've had incredible growth in the last year during the pandemic, which means they're becoming better and more robust as platforms to use. And I have to say, I am not at all affiliated with any of these platforms. I've never worked for them. I don't receive commission. This is really just user testimony. There are different platforms that parallel the functionality, but these 3 for me have just been solids from the last, at least 5 years for me, but mostly, especially for Google Docs more. So this is what we're going to cover today. And if there are tips and tricks that you know about these platforms, please jump in and contribute. I bet I won't cover it all because we only have an hour today. So in general, when you're choosing digital tools to work with for, distance, you're geographically distanced coordinating, or you need to do some asynchronous planning, right? You want to edit documents at different times. So here's some rules of thumb. It's important to remember that free can work. I think that when people plan projects, or you're looking at getting your own localized food group or food network off the ground, it can feel really daunting and overwhelming. to think about, oh, geez, I got to set up accounts for all these things. It looks like you have to pay for all of it. And all of these apps paying for these can really add up. So it's important to know that what we're talking about today, it's called a freemium model, and you can have an introductory level of an account on each of these platforms for free. And then if you need additional capacity, you need to use them differently, or you need more functionality, you can then pay to upgrade the function of each of these apps. But you can start out for free, and I think that's really important if you're just jumping in to a new project with a new group of people. Each of these also have phone apps, or has a phone app that, I use these on my computer, but a lot of us more and more are tuning into meetings on our phones or on our tablets. And each of these apps also has, I think, pretty user-friendly apps as well. So important to remember that you could be using a couple different devices at the same time. And this is the rule that we all know, but no one ever follows, and it's to plan ahead, right? Plan for contingencies. In Alaska, we have communication disruptions all the time. And it's important, especially up here, to think about those with maybe not as good internet service. Have a backup plan. It's important if you're asking people to follow along with a slideshow, send out the slides beforehand. I didn't do that today, so I'm not following my own best practice. But for longer term or longer planned out meetings, that's what we recommend. Consider internet outages. And then I try and do this. I happen to love vocabulary. I love the lexicon of business and food systems. And I think avoiding jargon does make it much more welcoming for people to come to the table. So that's something that I put out there. As soon as you get into food systems and you get into grant writing and you get into, especially with our food policy group, there is a vocabulary that you develop, and it's really exciting to use. But we always try and reel it back and just use regular words when we're especially welcoming new people to the table. So that's something that we recommend as well, both digitally and in person, just as a best practice. Also, I wanted to point out, if any of you are members of nonprofits, you're thinking about starting a nonprofit, TechSoup is a platform that aggregates discounts on digital tools and software and hardware for nonprofits. We were able to get a really affordable Zoom package. Robbie, I don't know if you have anything to add about our experience using TechSoup.
Yeah, it just takes a little while to get set up so that you go through the verification process. It could take up to a couple weeks. The other cool thing we were able to do, given our 501c3 nonprofit status, we were able to get a free nonprofit Google Suite with all of the branded, Robbie at akfoodpolicycouncil.com, that sort of thing. So that was really helpful. And I mentioned that because TechSoup verifies that for Google. So you can kind of get it all done in one shot.
Awesome, thanks. And there was a bit of a learning curve, I remember, for us at the Alaska Food Policy Council. It did take some time. It's not an instantaneous discount. So they verify that you are who you say you are to get the discount, because some of the discounts are pretty substantial. So the first thing we're going to talk about today, as I mentioned, these are, again, the platforms we're looking at. And the first one, I'm using Google Docs, and that's what generally we say Google Docs, but really we're talking about the Google Workspace. So we're talking today about shared document management, chat applications, and then video meetings or video conferencing. Those are the three functions we're going to discuss today. So again, I put Google Docs up here because that's what we say. Put it in a Google Doc. We'll check it out on the Google Doc. I'll share you with a Google Doc. And really, we're talking about the Google Workspace. And this used to be called the G Suite. Some of us just call it Drive, but Drive is actually a function within the Google Workspace. And if you go to workspace.google.com, you can learn about all of the different applications that they offer. And again, for free. So some organizations are just within Google, just like some organizations only live within Microsoft for Outlook and Word. Again, Google is free and has a pretty low barrier to entry. You just need a Gmail email address. So once you've set up your Gmail address, you can then access all of these tools. Gmail, video conferencing through Google Meet, there's a chat function. At AFPC, we mostly use Drive to store all of our documents, and we create our documents in docs, sheets, slides, and sometimes we do surveys in forms, which is like a survey monkey. So this is the Microsoft equivalent, right? So docs is Microsoft Word, sheets is like Excel, and then slides is just like PowerPoint. And again, these are free applications. And you do need to be on the internet to access all of this. And then there's usually an offline function that you can then download things to work if you don't have internet all the time. So Google Workspace, highly recommend for document sharing and management. The things I want to cover today, what is this? We just talked about what it is. It is free. Eventually, if you end up storing a lot of images or you end up storing a lot of documents, you may end up running out of free storage and you may need to upgrade. So that's something to consider as well if you're storing a bunch of pictures. So what I want to do today is open a shared document together. I want to group edit something, and then we'll practice leaving comments as if you were leaving comments on someone's grant application. And we'll look at different modes of editing and suggesting ways to review documents, ways to share these out to people, and then how to download those Google documents as Word or PDF or something else that is easily shareable. So let's do this. I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And I am going to share this screen. Okay, can you see that now? Robbie, can you see the Google Drive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So the first thing we're going to do is create a shared document. This folder, I'm showing you a little bit behind the scenes at AFPC. This folder is for where we're storing our public resources for our Regional Food Systems Partnership Grant. So if I wanted to, I'm going to start a new folder, and this is Digital Tool Test. Oh, that looks terrible. Digital Tool Test. So all I did, everybody saw that, I went up and created new. And there's a variety of ways to easily start a new document. I like the drop down. You can start a new Word document or a Google Doc, an Excel sheet, PowerPoint, forms, and then there's more. So in the folder that I started, I want to start a document for us all to share. So I'm going to double click on that. And it's blank. There's nothing in here yet because we just started it. I'm going to start a new doc. And everyone at AFPC already has access to all of these folders. So if you give access to everyone in your group, and they already have access to the entire Google Drive folder, they'll be able to get in there as well. So careful about keeping notes on your friends in your Google Drive. Okay, so we're going to say Digital Tool Test. So I've just named the document. All I did was click on the box. And now I want to share it with you all. So I'm going to go up here to share. There's a bunch of people who are shared on our documents, but what I want to do is go down here to get the link. So anyone on the internet with this link can edit. Now, if I wanted to change that, you just hit change. Anyone with the link, I could restrict this to only a couple people. Whoever I wanted to see it, I can turn it into, I could share it with you all and you could be viewers, or you could only leave comments, but I want everyone to be able to edit today. So we will edit. We hit editor. And then I just copy the link. Okay, so now I go to Zoom chat and I paste it in there. So everyone go to the Zoom chat and click on this link. All right, so there are 14 participants here. I would like to see 14 responses on the Google Doc to the question I just chatted on there. Let me go get some text language real quick. Keep going.
I just want to know who put fried okra on there because we are soulmates.
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Okay. I would love it if you're having troubles here. If anyone's having struggles, please feel free to reach out. This is the time to ask questions. I'm going to move this to the bottom. Now I can see all of your cursors here. So I know up at the top, I see there's, Google shows it as an anonymous animal. So if you're not logged into your own Google account, I see this as anonymous coyote, anonymous manatee. And I'm like, oh, who's the anonymous manatee? And what are they trying to type right now? So I click on that and it takes me to their icon. It'll take me like, Robbie, would you click down here? Who are you? Oh, I don't know who you are up here. Brownies, fried okra, kimchi. Okay. Dessert gal. Robbie is the anonymous rabbit. Awesome. Okay, so if I see somebody typing in here, say this is a grant application and I've got two other teammates working on this shared application and I have something to say really quick, I can either, I could call you or you can chat to people. So you can chat over on the sidebar. And that way I'm not talking to you through text in the document. We're talking on the sidebar on a chat. So I think it's pretty neat. Thanks, Megan. So Megan's chatting to us. Awesome. Who's on the phone and the anonymous coyote can't see anyone's names? You're not alone because not everyone's name is showing up. Hi, Jean. So I can see if I click here, I can see that we have 7 viewers. And again, I can see that Melissa's here and Megan's here, and I can chat with them because they're logged into their Google account. Oh, Jeanette, hi. And so Jeanette, you probably can't see anybody because you're not logged into your Google account, which is why it's good. I like to log in before I work on it so it better tracks my behavior.
I want to pipe in real quick if that's okay, Rachel. On the phone too, if you click on the 3 dots on the top right, it will show you the current viewers. So you might be able to see people's little icons, at least the anonymous, that's where their names would show up.
Awesome, thanks. There's probably a good, I should do a separate mobile slide for that. I did not add that today because mobile does look different. Awesome. Okay, so everyone's added text. We tried to add text. Up here, it's the toolbar and it looks very similar to Microsoft Word, though it's important to note the functionality is not always the same. I find that images are a little bit harder to work with in Google Docs, at least for me. And then formatting can sometimes look different when you convert from a Google Doc to a Word. So it's really important if you're using these tools that you are then going to convert to a different platform. If you're going to download a Google Doc into a Word document, it's important to think about formatting and giving yourself a little bit of buffer time to manage that. So let's say, I'm going to scroll up. Let's say I want to, I'm editing. This is just text from one of our blogs. I'm going to get the chat out of here. And you can edit, but like, how do I know that I don't know who made that. I don't know why, maybe it's a comment I don't understand. So rather than just type into a document when you're editing, you can type in, so I went up here and I went to suggesting. You can go to suggesting for edits. And this makes it way easier to see the changes that people want to make. So under the Alaska, this past October, the Alaska Food Policy Council was awarded, and maybe it wasn't October, maybe it was November. So I'm going to say that. And then it leaves it there. So if I make my edits and then I send it back to Robbie, she'll see what happened. She'll see that she'll see all the changes that I made rather than try to hunt and peck throughout the entire document to see the changes that I made. So why don't, if anybody wants to try that out in your own document, you can go up and hit suggesting and then make some edits in the text if you would like. Let's try that now.
Rachel, can you point out where the suggesting piece is one more time?
Yep, great. So I'm going to go to the upper right-hand part of the screen. In the top right, it'll say share, and then it might have your face as your little icon. And then it'll usually, for folks, it'll say editing. And then, are you seeing my screen still shared?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And then I suggest going down to suggesting. There we go. Right.
Free the clowns. Goodness.
Appreciate the creative suggestions. Okay, so. Oh, that's okay, Jeanette. And for all of this, if you have a follow-up question, if you're like, this went really fast, I don't know what to do, we're happy to host another session, another work session. I really think, when you're trying to do real work in real time with a new tool, and that's what we've seen in our meetings, people freak out and you're not able to think a lot on what you actually need to contribute to a project. So happy to host more test sessions to just dink around in the platform. I too want to eat pierogies today. Okay, so say I made all these edits, I sent them to Robbie, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna take some of these edits, but some of these I'm gonna throw out because she's got final veto power. So let's say I was wrong and we didn't get the grant in November, we actually did get it in October. So you just go over here and you reject it. And it goes, and Control Z or Command Z on a Mac, where you can undo what you just did. So say I accidentally accepted, and it's November, but we actually want to go back to October. I can hit Command Z or Control Z, and it goes back. So that function does work in Google Docs. So I'm going to X that out, right? So let's just go ahead and accept that. We're going to replace country with state. Sounds good to me. World with globe. Yeah. And then Jeanette left a comment here. So this is a great example. Great segue, Jeanette. So Jeanette was going to leave us a comment. She plans to watch this again on a laptop because she's on a phone right now. So what Jeanette could do, Nicole, I'm going to get to your comment in a second. What she could do is highlight this. And you see when I highlight this, it takes me, go over to the right-hand margin, and you see this little box pop up and it says add a comment. Jeanette plans to watch this later. And that way, so I'm going to reject your comment because we've captured it here in a marginal comment. And that way you don't have to change the actual text of the document to leave notes and reminders for each other when you're not editing at the very same time and you can't discuss it. So now, Jeanette, can you see that comment? Oh, is she still here? Robbie, could you respond to the comment in the margin?
Yes, Jeanette plans.
Cool. So now you can see Robbie has responded, and you can actually tag people as well. Again, if everyone is logged into their Google account, I can tag Robbie. And that way she'll get a notification. So she'll get an email notification that says you were tagged in this document. And then when you get that email, it'll take you right to that chat in this document. Okay. So we've gone over editing and suggesting. There's also viewing mode. So it takes away all of the, all the white noise around it. So I'm now just viewing as if I was going to read it as a final version. And then it goes away. So it's really, you have to pay attention to your toolbar. So it's up here in viewing mode. We're going to go back to editing. Okay. Nicole, your question, where's the chat function? You're on the actual GDoc and not looking. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you go up to where at the top right-hand part of the toolbar where you see all of the anonymous animals and some of us logged in, there's a little person icon with like an ellipses 3-dot bubble, and that opens the chat. Chat. And again, think about if you're logged into your Google or not, because that might reduce your functionality. Any questions on this? All right. We might run a little over today, 1 o'clock, and that's okay, because if you have to drop off at 1, that's okay, we're recording. Yes, for tagging people, you just put their names. Just tagged my sister. And then you can also, more importantly, there you go. You can delete it. So I'm going to delete that comment. Hey, Betty. That is okay. You got the comments down, Betty. So you're good. Yes, Melissa. As long as they have a Gmail account, you can be tagged. Okay, cool.
Hey, Rachel.
Yeah.
Can you tag outside of Gmail? I for some reason thought you could.
I thought you could.
Yeah, give it a shot. We'll see. Melissa, maybe we can test it with your UAA address.
Let's see. Yeah, Melissa, why don't you put yours in? See if that works. Are we doing it? Maybe that'll work. It does come up, so it checks who's in your emails. Okay. I'm gonna look more into that, but all of mine popped up. Melissa, I'd be curious to see if you got that, although I don't think that's your email address anymore. Okay. Let's go to, I want you to figure out how to share these documents and then download as. So let's go, if we want to download this document and then be able to share it out. Oh, hi, Joanne, welcome. Welcome, awesome. So if you want to share this out, all you do is go to your toolbar And you'll see, just like in Microsoft Word, we've got File, Edit, View, Insert. So I'm in the top left-hand part of my screen now. Go to File, and you can share, which is just like, gonna share it. Right, so I can get that link, and we talked about how to do this. You can change people's permissions on what to do. If you only want them to view, you can do it that way. But if I want to download as, these are all of your options. So you could download it into a Word, into a PDF. That's usually what we do. So Word or PDF are probably what I use the most. And then it will just download onto your computer. The other feature I like about this is the version history. So if you want to see, and again, I went to File and I scrolled down to version history. So if you're like, I swear someone wrote this in here, or I wrote this in here, you can see what happened. I love this feature. So we made a bunch of edits. I created the document here. I'm on the right-hand side of the screen now at 12:23. And then it tells us who did what. Okay. And again, it's only telling me what people did when they were logged in. So that's version history, and that's a function I really like to track the action. Okay, we figured out how to share, how to download as. Are there any other shared document questions? The functionality of this looks the same when you're in their sheets. If you are in here, we'll go back to same with slides. Right, so we've got digital test session. And it'll take a second to create because I'm running a lot of programs right now. But now we're in this shared folder that we created together, and you can see the two different PowerPoint or Google Slides, and then our digital tool test session. Okay. So there's that. And please feel free to follow up with any questions. But now I want to move on to, we're going to go to Slack. So what I want us to do in Slack is a chat application. Okay. So it's a way to stay out of email. It's a way to organize your conversations, and Google has a chat feature. Microsoft Teams has a chat feature. So I'm not only advocating for Slack, but what we have seen at the Alaska Food Policy Council, we have not mandated it, but with members who have adopted Slack, we're keeping some of our conversations better organized outside of email. I don't know about you, but I lose things in email a lot. So we'll use Slack as a chat application. And what I want to cover briefly today, this is fairly intuitive, and there's also really good help sites, websites for each of these platforms. And I'll share those links at the end. I want to show you how to start a Slack forum, what's a Slack channel, how to tag people, and then how to organize content. So let's do this. So I started a Slack channel for this group just for the purposes of today. And all you would need to do is go to slack.com, and then you would create a new workspace. And when you do that, it's going to ask you a couple questions, just like logging on to any other platform. You can log in with your Google or your Apple platform, or you create your own. And again, I love the phone app. The Slack phone app was a game changer for me. So you go through that process, you set up Slack, and then you'll get to something that looks like this. So this is your Slack room. And within the room, there are a variety of different channels on the side. So my mouse is on the left-hand side of the screen. And I'm going to ask you all to join me right now. So I want to add some teammates. And you can specifically reach out to folks who are only in your organization, or you can get an invite link. And the invite link is time bound. So it's, I think it's only good for 30 days. Double check me on that. But if you send this out, that link will expire. So I'm going to copy the invite. Yeah, there it is. Expires in 30 days. So I copied that. And I am going to chat everyone in Zoom. I just chatted you to join the Slack channel. And if you don't want to join the Slack channel today, that is fine. I just wanted to show you how to create an easy invitation link. I see Megan Geary. Give everybody a second to jump on that. There we go. Look at all these personal messages. And Slack will prompt you. It wants you to use the app, and so it'll prompt you to use the app. Right? So it says, hi. So I'm just going to give you an auto message, Robbie. Hi, Robbie. So if I wanted to create, I'll give you a few more seconds for folks who want to jump on. The Slack bot will show you, it'll give you helpful tips. You can also, it sends you right to the help center. And I think the Slack help center is pretty helpful. Some are not, but the Slack one is. If I wanted to, hi, Stephanie. Okay, so if I wanted to create a group chat, so I'm going to go to direct messages, hit the plus sign to create a new one. And I'm going to @Robbie, and it auto completes for you. And I'm going to add the garden director. Okay. Hey. So now I'm in a three-way chat with Robbie and the garden director. There you go, Jeanette and Joanne. Hey. Yes, Nicole, what's your question?
So I've been invited to a Slack room before, so I've participated. And when I followed that link, it prompted me to set up, it's had me plug in my email, and now it's asking me to create a persona and a password and all that. And I kind of don't want to mess with the other one I'm in, so I'm hesitant to push the button.
Yeah, I'm on like 10 different Slack channels. It's a newer way for organizations to connect and invite constituents and members to connect. You will be able to go to, so if you go to slack.com and it's asking you to do all that, these are my other workspaces. Excuse me, I'm saying Slack channel and room, but there's other workspaces, right? So here's our regional food system workspace, and it's organized by email. So if you look at, here's my workspaces for my Gmail, here's workspaces for my Alaska Pacific University email. And when you go to slack.com, it shows you all of the different spaces that you could log into. But again, for today, you don't have to. I understand if you just don't want to mess around with it. But there are like a zillion more Slack channels you could log on to. And there's also, it's a way for brands to now create community. There's a food tech one I'm a part of, and it's just a way to have, asynchronous dialogue that is not in email. Does that help, Nicole?
I think so. I mean, yeah, I was leery of putting in a new password and then losing my access to my other Slack channel by messing around.
For sure. And I would just recommend keeping your password handy. The other cool thing that Slack does is if you do need to reset your password or you need to get into, you're not sure which email, it'll send you a magic link. So you don't have to go through the login. If you send your email, it just sends you the magic link that automatically logs you in. So they've made it really easy to get back on their platform.
Okie dokie, thanks.
Cool, yeah. Okay, so that's direct messaging, and that's how to invite. So all you do to invite people to your Slack channel is add some teammates. And then you can copy the invite link, and then you can invite away. So now what? So now we're all in Slack. What are we going to talk about in this? And I have named this channel the Alaska Regional Food Systems channel. And to find this channel, it creates a website for you. So this is what, I'll chat it in Zoom. So that's what that looks like. And again, see, it's currently free. We could upgrade to store more messages. The free model does limit the number of messages that will be stored in Slack. But I want to create a new topic. I want to create a new topic of conversation. So maybe I want to create, and I'm going to get out of there. I'm going to go hover over channels, and then this plus sign pops up. So I'm just going to create a channel, and I'm going to call, and it's all organized by hashtag. So, old pound sign, new hashtag, that's how they're organized. So I'm going to say grants and funding, and everything has to be lowercase and one word. So you have to hyphenate everything. It makes my editing brain crazy, but here we are. Description, this is to share resources about grants and funding, obviously. You can make channels private, but again, please pay attention, you can't be undone, so you can't walk that permission back. So we're going to keep it open, and I'm going to create it. And it'll ask me who I want to add. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to only add specific people. I don't want to automatically add. We're going to skip this for now. So on my toolbar on the left, you'll see we've got our just AK regional food systems. Jeanette says this is super cool. We've got our general. This is where AFPC, we share silly memes and things and updates. How many of you do not yet see grants and funding? Nicole does not see it, right? Okay, perfect. So what I want y'all to do is go up to channels, hit that plus sign again, and then go to browse. And it'll show you all the different channels that are in there. And you can join them. And I haven't made any of them private. And if you join, grants and funding, see my grants and funding just bolded, it just illuminated. And I see that Melissa's here, and garden director's here, and Jeanette's here, and I can say, hey, garden director. There you go. And again, pay attention to your toolbar down here. You have some ability to, there's a lot of Slack shortcuts. I won't get into it today, but there's some really fun ways to make your text stand out. You can attach documents. This does have a sync up with Google Documents, so you can better share things. We're not going to hit that today. I just wanted to introduce you to the platform. So, all right. Does anyone want to try creating a channel? And I went up here to channels and hit plus, but you can also go down just to add channels down here. All right. That's as much as I was going to share with you about Slack, how to create it, how to share it. Oh, we've got a favorite foods channel. And I saw that come up because I'm the admin on here. So every time something happens, I'm the admin of the channel, so I know it's happening. If you create a new channel and you want people to join it, you can either invite them. I don't know if Robbie joined this. So this is, I'm in grants and funding. Robbie did not join the channel, so it tells me that she didn't. So I tag her, I try to tag her in grants and funding, and then Slack will prompt you to invite her. It'll prompt you to invite her. I'm the admin, so I can just add her to a channel. We're in the Good Times channel now. Awesome. Great, okay, it looks like everyone's got a hang of it. The other favorite function I have in Slack, this is the last thing I'll show you, is the search bar, which is not very prominent, but if you go to the top, here's the search bar. if you know someone said something in a chat, you know you had talked about something, or you quickly have to get to something that you talked about earlier, we can talk about, let's see. So I typed in, we don't have a lot of messages in here, but let's see, what did, so let's, in general, everyone said hi. So I'm gonna go back to my channels. Okay, and I'm just gonna type in, I know somebody said hi, so I'm gonna look for that. And it'll show me all the messages that where someone has said hi. And you can obviously see how this would be important with the title of a grant, title of a document that you're working on, a phrase that somebody said. So I think the search function is, for me, it's been highly useful. Okay, any questions on Slack as a chat app? Cool.
Oh, I did
Yep.
want to say, I wanted to add one other thing. In addition to chat, you can share links to your Google Drive in here. You can also send PDFs and Word documents. So I know Rachel's, this is just the tip of the iceberg for Slack, but wanted to throw those out there as well.
No, that's a great point. Thank you. And it does, again, it's got some integrations that make it easier to do that. I just copied the link to our digital tools Google Doc that we created today, and I'm going to put it in, I just pasted it in general. And I have not connected Google to Slack yet in this workspace. So let's go ahead and see if that works. Sure. Then you just give it all the permissions. Everything needs permissions to integrate. And then, okay, great. It goes through, you should read this. It goes through what the integration actually means. I've done this in a different workspace. And that's what it looks like. When you do integrate Google Docs, it gives you the preview of the document that you have shared. Okay, hey Betty. Cool. Okay, well, welcome to Slack if this is your first time. I'm going to move on to talk about Zoom. So we've talked about shared document management, chat applications, and now we're going to talk about video conferencing. So for Zoom, we all got here today, so you've used Zoom. Zoom has had quite the moment in the last year and a half, and it is my preferred video conferencing platform. Zoom is, again, we're not affiliated. I don't know Zoom, but they were the platform that we used to do all the video conferencing for, well, we used two for the 2020 Alaska Food Policy Council conference, or Alaska Food Festival and Conference, that we hosted online only last November. So we used Zoom and an event management platform called Kuva, but we'll talk about Zoom today. And again, for video conferencing, Google has a video function, Microsoft Teams has a video function. If you have, Facebook Messenger has a video function. So if you have your preferred platform that everyone you're working with is already on, I think sometimes people get stuck in processes and what they think they should be doing. I really encourage you in the beginning to go with what works, and then you can evolve your processes later on to better meet your needs. So there's a variety of functions we're going to talk about today, and I divided them up into back end and front end, right? So back end is for the organizers and the users, and the front end is what most of us see when you attend a Zoom session. Someone sends you an invite to a Zoom meeting, and that's what you're going to see. And I bet we're going to go, it's 12:59 right now. I bet we're going to go until at least 1:15 today to plan for it. Again, we're recording this, and so if you need to hop off, please feel free to do so. And thanks for being here. So I'm going to take you into the back end of our account. I'm not going to show you everything like our credit card numbers, but I am going to show you what it looks like, because the back end looks pretty different from when you log into a meeting on the front end. Okay. So we've set, we've set up our Slack. So now we go zoom.us. That's what we're going towards. And you can sign in just like any other platform. And then you go into your account. Robbie Mixon, our fearless leader of AFPC, has set up our account with Zoom. Robbie, did we get a Zoom Pro account through TechSoup? Do you remember?
We did, yes.
Okay, so we get a discount, which that allowed us to host more people and have longer meetings. Probably a few more things. I encourage you anyway to figure out what you want to do. Check out their plans and pricing. I personally, for the last 3 or 4 years, have paid for my own Zoom Pro account, because if you have a free account, it will limit the time on your meetings. And I think it's like 45 minutes, and I usually have meetings for an hour. And so they've clearly figured out how to incentivize people to pay for an account. But again, check out that TechSoup and see if you can get a discount for your organization. Also, one of the benefits that the Alaska Food Policy Council can offer to communities is if you want to host a food system session, we're happy to help you set up an introductory meeting, and we can schedule it for you and get you a link. So anybody for your meeting could log in, and we're happy to set that up for you just to get you off the ground. So you go in, you fill out your profile, and this is all onboarding stuff. So you have to take some time to get yourself onto Zoom. It gives you, your own personal room, and then it gives you a couple of different ways to schedule meetings. And there's a big difference between meetings and webinars. Anybody want to tell me what the difference is or how they perceive those to be different? I'm a teacher. I'm feeling the need for participatory teaching, but that's okay. Who's been in a webinar before? Yeah, thanks, Joanne. Yeah, Nicole, webinars don't allow for full participation, right? We are all currently in a meeting. I've opened up the permissions, and so other folks could screen share. Folks can, turn your mics on and off. I can see everybody who's here, and the participants can see everyone who's here. For a webinar, that's like if Alaska Food Policy Council, yeah, exactly, Megan, just the speaker, it's just me, or it's just Robbie, and there's a Q&A function. Participants can raise their hand, but you don't have any mic functionality. So it's very one way with, a little bit of chat, a little bit of, communication with the host, but it's not like you're in a conference room with a bunch of other people. Cool, thanks, Erica. And so on the back end, you can see how we have scheduled all of our meetings for our upcoming check-ins, our upcoming board of directors. We work with other groups currently in the state on our Zoom platform, so we have scheduled those out. So the way it works is you can see your upcoming meetings. You can go back and look at your previous meetings. I always share, if I just need to schedule a one-off meeting, I always share my personal room information. So this is your consistent link that you use if you just schedule your personal room. But be careful, because if you send it to someone and then you send it to another person, if that other person can access your room at a different time if you happen to be in another meeting. So I think best practice is to always schedule out meetings one by one, because it'll give you a unique link to each meeting. Oh, back to personal room. So if we go to previous, here we are today. So 12 to 1 technical skills workshop. This is us. We can see that we're in session right now. I could join, I'm the host, or I could end it, and I can't edit it because we're in the session. But here's the behind the scenes of what a meeting in Zoom looks like. You can also add, it's got the calendar plugins. Security in Zoom has become pretty front of mind for a lot of people, as we've had people, Zoom crashers, who show up and share their screen with often inappropriate images in an effort to derail a conversation. I've been on at least a couple meetings where, God, one I was on, some punk kids from the southeast part of the country. They were down in the southeast and they logged on and we weren't really sure who they were, but you never want to, didn't want to call them out. And then about 5 minutes into the meeting, they shared their screen. And this was a community meeting, so we didn't want to make it a webinar. And they shared their screen with really inappropriate imagery. And we just booted them off we booted everyone off the meeting and then we restarted it. So that was the lesson learned. Now that everyone is on Zoom. So you can set some securities up beforehand so that doesn't happen to you. You can utilize a passcode. There's also something called the waiting room, which means you get to authorize every person who comes into the room. So my personal Zoom is set up with a waiting room. If I schedule a meeting with you, I see when you come in and then I get to admit you into the waiting room. And if I don't recognize your name, I do not admit you. So you can set up your passcode, you can set up a waiting room. Here's the invite link. Again, very easy to access. And it'll let you copy the invitation to just paste into Slack, paste into emails. It tells you, you can set up who do you want to have access to video, who can turn their video and audio on, and then just different ways for people to join. And I always recommend really paying attention to this and just put people to mute when they join, mute upon entry. I think that's probably one of the best features. That way you don't have 20 people joining a meeting with the background noise. You can record depending on the type of account that you have. We're recording right now. We record to the cloud or to our computers, depending on where we want to store it. And then I created a poll. So the poll that you all did earlier, are you with the Regional Food Systems Partnership Grant? That's what I did in here. And it shows me that the poll was ended. If I wanted to, so I just went to, and just to back up, we are in the personal account, in meetings, and then all the way at the bottom, we're in our specific meeting, and I went down to polls. So I want to add a poll, and we're going to call this the test poll, and I want to make it anonymous. Is this a test? You can, I don't like that you can't get open answered. You can't give open answered polls yet, but yes, no, what's happening? Okay, so here's my poll. You can make it a multi-question poll, so you can go to add a question. Test number 2, yes, no, what's happening? And then make sure you save it. So notice I couldn't go in, we're in this meeting right now, so I couldn't edit the meeting information, but I could add polls. And so dynamically, if you're in the middle of a meeting and you think, oh, I'd really like to ask this question, and you're the moderator or you're the host, you can go in and edit the polls or add them. So that's what that looks like. And then you can delete just as easily or edit. All right. Same style of background with webinars. Webinars are a big value add for Zoom, and so you often will pay to have webinar functions, especially if you want, you think it's going to be a big one with a couple hundred participants. So they've got a pretty good explainer video on their help site, which I will take you to in a second. You can track your recordings. You can search them by date, depending on where you've stored them, right? So we know that we're recording right now in the cloud. So you'll see that it's recording right here and it's still processing. So this will show after we're done recording the session today. And again, searchable by date. And then there's a variety of settings that you can tinker around with. There's a lot of functionality in Zoom, but for the most part, if you're setting up a community food meeting, all you need to do And there's a separate, let's see here. There is, I don't think you can see my Zoom box in Zoom. Can you see that, Robbie, my personal meeting ID?
No.
Yeah, I did not, I apologize, I did not make screenshots because you can't see all the Zoom toolboxes while you're in Zoom, which is a good point. We're putting together a couple of digital tool guides. So we're going to do one on the shared document management, on chat applications, and then on Zoom. So stay tuned for that. What do we want to do here? Let's see. It's 1:10. I'm looking to prioritize time because this took longer than I thought it would. I think that's all I wanted to show you for Zoom, because I was just really surprised in a meeting I was in, or I think it was last week, it might have been earlier this week, where someone said, I have yet to set up my own Zoom. And I was like, oh, well, it's not that hard, but there is a learning curve. So Melissa asks, you can only do this on the website, not the app. Yeah, so all this backend functionality, you know, the app on my computer and my phone, I can use it for calls, I can schedule calls, but all of these settings, I've only been able to do on the website. And I'm not of Zoom, I'm not a Zoom expert. So if anyone else has something different to say, please share. I usually have to log into the website to do this stuff. Okay, cool. All right, I don't know what that is. But the last thing, let's see, from the front end, I don't think we need to go over too much of this since most of you are on Zoom already. But this is what I wanted to share. Please use the help functions of these websites. Have put a lot of time and effort into creating really robust tutorials. And I think, again, it can feel really overwhelming if you're like, I just can't figure out how to schedule and share an invitation to a Zoom. I recommend using these websites to do that. Oops. And again, creating these digital tool guides. We will publish these when we'll put it out on social media when they are done. I wanted to see what questions we had today before we finalized those, and where you will find these. If you go to akfoodpolicycouncil.org, we'll put them under our food systems resources. So that was the fastest tech primer ever. It's 1:12. I am happy to stick around for questions until 1:30. I know we didn't cover it all, but I also know that people have to go and do things. And so it's a little cut off. But that's where we're at. Any questions? What do y'all want to chat about?
I got a probably pretty easy question that maybe Robbie, since you said you're not an expert in Zoom, it's kind of a weird one, but I've tried doing polls, and the way that our organization has it set up is that there's one person's email associated with the team's Zoom account, and we all get to access it through that. So we're not all added on as people because you have to pay more for that.
Yeah.
And so I tried to do a poll the first time, and it told me something like, there's another person logged onto this account, because we had another one of us there at the meeting. The second time I tried to do it, so it wouldn't let me launch the poll. The second time there wasn't another one of us in the room, and I still couldn't launch the poll. I don't know what's happening.
No,
Oh, thanks, Joanne.
they may have been, Nicole, they may have still been logged in. I know when Rachel and I actually had this just come up
Today.
So yeah, when I joined, you know, Rachel had said, oh, I can't log in. It says you're here. And then since I'm the master owner or whatever, the primary owner of the account, I was able to launch it for her. And I haven't figured out another way around that, Nicole. So that's your kind of non-answer. Sorry.
Maybe I can corner you one of these days, and we can walk through what you just said, because yeah, I'd love to be able to do polls, but if we're all going to be using one identity, I don't know if it's possible.
Well, I think too, Nicole, it's important to think about who's got access to the account and who's logged in and who's not, because I was logged in as the host as Robbie today, and it booted me off. permissions, and I was still able to just now create the poll, but Robbie had to launch the poll for me today. So it's, and again, with our best practice of like always have a backup, it's good to always have at least one other co-host on your call, and someone will have the permission.
Yeah, maybe Robbie, one of these days we can do a little cross-pollination of ideas here. Maybe get a couple of us Homer Soil and Water folks and make sure that we can do this, because it's really annoying when you've got two polls and it's somebody else's webinar you're helping co-host and then you can't launch them for them.
Totally. No, we can certainly do that and test some things out to get to the bottom of it.
Perfect, thanks.
I think I had one question for the group before we sign off. We are hoping to do more of these workshop type sessions, especially with Rachel's fresh expertise hat on. Curious what else you want to learn about? What are some things that are fuzzy? If you think of something later too, you can certainly reach out to Rachel and I. Everybody knows everything. This is great. Oh, here's one from Jeanette. When the presenter shares their screen, be aware that the screen shares image or avatar appears in the upper right corner for mobile users. So some info may be obscured. I was able to see the orange arrows pointing to the AFPC drop-down menu. That's a great point. I feel like I'm learning something new in Zoom every time we use it.
That's how I feel. And I think, Robbie, too, when we put this digital guide together for Zoom, you know, we've done presenter guides and attendee guides for our conferences that touch on Zoom, but there's a lot that I can't screen share today because Zoom knows I'm trying to screen share and it won't show itself. So I think we'll do some screenshots of both mobile and desktop to show you all what it looks like. That's helpful, Jeanette. Thank you. Yeah, Melissa, what do you want to know?
I was just, for Google, do you know how to make documents accessible?
Accessible, like open for anyone with the link?
No, more like for folks who are disabled or have maybe that kind of accessibility.
ADA, I do not.
Yes.
That is a great question. We should follow up on that. That's a great topic for later. Digital tools and ADA.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if anyone in this group was interested in learning more about that. I do have some documentation from working at UAA, so I could see if I can make it more non-UAA and make it AFPC.
Yeah, no, and I think we could probably, I'm sure there's some digital tool ADA experts we could figure out. Yeah, that's an awesome idea.
Thanks.
Well, I don't want to take up too much of anybody else's afternoon since it continues to be lovely here in Anchorage. I feel like the weather gods are smiling on us this month. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to follow up with us. We're happy to talk and happy to host more informational webinars or conversational sessions, I think is our forte. We're good at the dialogue. Anything else, Robbie?
No, just I wanted to remind folks I dropped a link to our regional food system partnership project. In the spring 2022, we will be doing some node community asset mapping stuff. So wanted to just make sure all of y'all kept that on your heads. If you're not part of the nodes now, we would love for you to be in the 2022 when we do those workshops. So get in touch if you want information and we can connect you with the current node leaders. I'll drop my email in the chat just in case you need it, but I think most of you guys already have it.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone.
Thank you so much, Rachel. This was awesome.
We're all learning together.